From Elder Damsteed's book, Foundation of Seventh-day Adventist Message and Mission, you have the description of Miller's understanding of the midnight cry, which I've already told you, okay, but you have it spelled out for you. Miller believed that from this history here, the proclamation of Daniel 8:14 and the first angel of Revelation 14, that this proclamation, the hour of God's judgment has come, he believed that this was identifying the second coming of Christ. He believed that this message, Daniel 8:14 and the connected prophecies, was the message, behold the bridegroom cometh, behold Jesus is coming. This is the midnight cry. So Miller believed this whole history was the midnight cry, but Sister White's telling us the midnight cry was accomplished right here. Okay, so there's two midnight cries going on here. In fact, when Samuel Snow publishes his presentation on the midnight cry, what does he call it? What's the title? The True Midnight Cry. The only reason he's saying it's the true midnight cry is because he's well aware there's a Millerite teaching of what the midnight cry is that this is contradicting. And he's saying this is the true one. Okay, we've already read this next quote, the true midnight cry. We've read this passage in the previous quote. It says, the most spiritual received this message first, and those who had formerly led in the work were the last to receive and help swell the cry. Now we're going to discuss William Miller a little bit. William Miller has formerly led in this work from 1833 onward, but here, when the midnight cry message comes in August of 1844, he has trouble with it. He has trouble with it because he's not sure that we should be separating from the churches. He has trouble with it because he's been teaching another understanding of the midnight cry for many, many years. Now, here's one place where he addresses this, and there's several points in here that we want to put in the record. This is William Miller. I'd never been positive as to any particular day for the Lord's appearing, believing that no man could know the day and hour. In all my published lectures, it will be seen on the title page about the year 1843. In all my oral lectures, I invariably told my audiences that the periods would terminate in 1843 if there were no mistake in my calculation, but that I could not say the end might not come even before that time, and that they should be continually prepared. In 1842, some of the brethren preached with great positiveness the exact year and censured me for putting in an if. What is this referring to? In May of 1842, the 1843 chart is published. Now this here, in their meetings, is saying the Lord is returning in 1843, and the head of the movement, William Miller, is saying if my calculations are right, it'll be 1843, and the brethren come to William Miller and they say, take the if out of your presentation. It's 1843, without a doubt. So he's commenting on what happens when Habakkuk 2 is fulfilled, because Habakkuk 2 is fulfilled with the publication of this chart. Continuing on, the public press had also published that I'd fixed upon a definite day, the 23rd of April for the Lord's Advent. Therefore, in December of that year, as I could see no error in my reckoning, I published my belief that sometime between March 21st, 1843, and March 21st, 1844, the Lord would come. You see the Karaite reckoning of time there. Some had their minds fixed on particular days, but I could see no evidence of such unless the types of the Mosaic law pointed to the Feast of Tabernacles. I have that bold-faced for you because William Miller had already came to the conclusion of the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, and long before Samuel Snow uses this conclusion to proclaim the midnight cry here, William Miller's already written about it. So William Miller is actually the one the Lord used to put together the logic that Samuel Snow employs to identify October 22nd, 1844. Continuing on with Miller. During the year 1843, the most violent denunciations were heaped upon me, and those associated with me by the press and some pulpits. Our motives were assailed, our principles misrepresented, our characters traduced. What's traduced mean? I think traduced is what happens when you hit someone with a sword and you cut them in half. Okay, they're getting cut up, chewed up and spit out, all right? Time passed on, and the 21st of March, 1844 went by without our witnessing the appearing of the Lord. Our disappointment was great, and many walked no more with us. This tarrying time, this first disappointment, it purges the Millerite movement. I looked for a reference, a historical reference. Somewhere I have read, I have it no doubt in my notes, that before this time, from 1840, in this history, they estimated 200,000 Millerites. Okay, but by the time you get down here, it's 50. And what took the 150,000 out was this first disappointment. Many walk no more with us. Next, continuing on with Miller. Previously to this, in the fall of 1843, some of my brethren began to call the churches Babylon and to urge that it was the duty of Adventists to come out of them. With this, I was much grieved. And not only the effect was very bad, but I regarded it as a perversion of the Word of God, a wresting of the Scriptures. So he's having a problem with the second angel's message, which is going to make it more difficult for him to accept the true midnight cry message. He's struggling. But the practice spread extensively, and from that time, the churches, as might have been expected, were closed against us. It prejudiced many of us so that they would not listen to the truth. It created a deep feeling of hostility between Adventists and those who did not embrace the doctrine, so that most of the Adventists were separated from their respective churches. This was a result which I never desired nor expected, but it was brought about by unforeseen circumstances. We could then only act in accordance with the position in which we were thus placed. On the passing of my published time, I frankly acknowledged my disappointment in reference to the exact period, but my faith was unchanged in any essential feature. I therefore continued my labors, principally at the West, during the summer of 1844, until the 7th month movement, as it is called. You can even see right there a little bit of disdain, because he's going to set this aside and he's going to determine that this is false. And he's no doubt writing this after he's done that. He says, the 7th month movement, as it is called, I had no participation in this, only as I wrote a letter 18 months previously. Okay, he wrote this letter where he sets forth the types that Samuel Snow is going to use to make the midnight cry prediction. Only as I wrote a letter 18 months previously presenting the observances under the Mosaic law, which pointed to that month as the probable time when the Advent might be expected. This was written because some were looking for definite days in the spring. I had, however, no expectation that so unwarranted a use would be made of those topics that any should regard a belief in such mere inferential evidence as a test of salvation. So he's talking about Samuel Snow using his work to predict October 22nd, 1844. He says, I had no idea that someone would take such a shallow presentation and turn it into a salvational issue. He's pretty frustrated when he's writing this. I therefore had no fellowship with that movement until about 2 or 3 weeks previous to the 22nd of October. Those that formally led in the work were the last to receive the message of the midnight cry. 2 or 3 weeks before. In fact, underneath here, we got the letter where he accepts it on October 6th. I therefore had no fellowship with that movement until about 2 or 3 weeks previous to the 22nd of October, when seeing it had obtained such prevalence and considering it was as a probable point of time, I was persuaded that it was the work of God and felt that if it should pass by, I should be more disappointed than I was in my first published time. Now here's a letter that he wrote to Himes. Dear Brother Himes, October 6th, 1844, 16 days before the great disappointment. I see a glory in the 7th month, which I never saw before. Although the Lord had shown me the typical bearing of the 7th month 1.5 years ago, yet I did not realize the force of the types. Now, blessed be the name of the Lord, I see a beauty, a harmony, and agreement in the Scriptures, for which I've long prayed, but did not see until today. Thank the Lord, O my soul. Brother Snow, Brother Stores, and others be blessed for their instrumentality in opening my eyes. I'm almost home. Glory, 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 glory. Now, this he wrote on October 6th. What we just read previous to this, he wrote after he has rejected the midnight cry. He's rethought it. He says that was fanaticism. So you could see the I don't know if it's sarcasm, but the disdain that he had.